Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. So running on the weekend forecast, started very early with that today. The video is here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, you'll find it above the snow desk. There's also the written version, and you get to that from the buttons at the top of the page. Going to be a cold week coming up, and there is a little bit of wintry potential in there as well. Let you have a look at weekend forecast and see what you think. Just to say that the live chat that I did last night, Friday night, with myself and Quantum, the video tag is also here on the homepage. It's underneath the week ahead forecast. So haven't yet listened to that, you can certainly have a listen and see what you think to our discussion. Hope it went okay. And that will be placed later on the live chats page. So we've got a page here at website that has all of the past videos and will include this one. For all of the live discussions that myself and Quantum have had since we started on January 2015, I think, was the first one that we did quite some time ago now. So you can have a listen to those old recordings and also the very latest one on that page later on today. You get to that from the buttons here on the home page. The video will also be placed on my YouTube channel. It's also on Quantum's YouTube channel, so there'll be plenty of opportunities to have a listen to that if you couldn't listen last night. So with that out of the way, let's talk about today's second video. We're doing the third and final seasonal model roundup for winter of 2017-18. We're going to get 14, yes, that's right, you did hear right, 14 long-range models together for one final time, the third and final time, see what they're all showing for the winter of 2017-18. This is all building up the picture to the winter 2017-18 forecast, which will be released very shortly now. Just over a week's time, Sunday the 3rd of December. Tomorrow we've got the final winter update coming up for you. We've also got Terry Scully's final and official thoughts for the winter as well. I'll talk about all of this at the end of this video. It's going to be a really exciting day tomorrow, and it's all building up to the GazService.com winter forecast, which is going to be released in just over 1 week's time. So this is a very, very important update now, because these models will certainly be forming part of the winter forecast. They're not the be all and end all, but they'll certainly be forming part of the winter forecast. So we're going to base part of winter forecast on what these models are showing. So this is a very, very crucial and critical update. It's going to be quite a long video, so you can't watch it all in one go. Don't worry, you will be able to watch it whenever you want. It's going to be kept here at website indefinitely. It'll be placed later on today on the winter updates page for an extensive written report, so you'll be able to have a watch of it whenever you want and read that written report as well. Probably around 5 o'clock this evening. I'll try and get that on the winter updates page for you. The Chris shop is open, so if you're on Chris shop to at Amazon between now and Christmas, just click the green button that says Gaz Christmas Shop. It takes you to our Christmas Shop page. From there, click through the Amazon banners, go and do your Christmas shopping at Amazon. Because you've gone from Gaz Office to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you're buying. Big thank you to everybody for doing that. And with all of that said, I think we'd better get on with the third and final season one roundup for winter of 2017-18. So we're going to begin with the Russian model. Just to say, we are one model down this month. We have run out of time for the APEC model to update. That doesn't update till the 25th of the month, and fortunately I had to get this update out to you today, so unable to show you the update from APEC. Sorry to everybody that was wanting to see the APEC model, but we have got 14 models to go at, so I think we've got plenty to have a look at. So we begin with the Russian model. This is probability, and we're dealing with temperatures first of all. The Russian model is predicting temperatures to be ever so slightly milder than average this winter. And by the way, all the models you see in this update will be covering the full winter period, December to February 2017-18. So no messing around. There's no sort of November to January or January to March, nothing like that. All of the models for this one do cover that full winter period. So we've got probability suggesting slightly milder than average temperatures for this winter. Precipitation-wise, the Russian model is suggesting slightly wetter than average, particularly so for England and Wales. So we're starting off with a relatively mild and wet forecast from a Russian model for the winter. JMA next, so we move into the Pacific, and we're going to have a look at the Japanese model. Now, there's so much information that you can get from this, I can't touch on all of it, but a few days ago, I took this one out and had a look at it in a video in its own terms, broke it down on a month-by-month basis for the whole of the winter. As I can't go through all of that for you right now, but this is what the 500 millibar height anomaly is showing for the winter, and it's overall quite an unsettled looking signal for winter. We've got below average heights here, close to the UK, above average heights out in the Atlantic, and we're doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. The temperature anomaly for this winter is coming out slightly milder than average. It is going for a milder than average winter from sort of December through to February, and then in terms of precipitation, it's going for a wetter than average winter. It's seeing above average rainfall or above average precipitation for this winter. So a mild and wet winter is being predicted by the JMA for winter of 2017-18. The mean wind direction is a little bit more interesting. Black arrows are always a little bit difficult to make out, but they are generally coming from a north-northwesterly direction. So that does just, there could be some cooler conditions coming into that trough. What I can tell you about the JMA is that, certainly from its height anomaly and its mean wind direction forecast, it appeared to be going for a progressively colder pattern through the winter. So December was forecasting to be anticyclonic and mainly dry. January was very unsettled and possibly entrenching some colder air at times into the trough, but centred over UK. And then February held the greatest potential for cold because there was a blocking signal in February, and the suggestion was to bring in potentially a northerly flow into the trough that was sitting underneath that block over the UK. So actually these 3 monthly anomalies don't tell you all that much really. So the signal is, I think, to get colder from the JMA as we go into the winter months, you know, more and more into the winter. So late winter is forecast to be colder than early winter, if you see what I mean. South Africa next. This is a bit of a new one. We don't use this one very often, but as it's the final update, I thought we'd throw this one in. So the temperature forecast for the winter period, actually I think we've got November to January up there. So what I'm going to have to do is just very quickly pause the video. I'll try and get the December to February charts up with you. So I'm going to quick hit pause on the recording and try and get the correct charts up for you right now. Okay, so sorry about that. Just check to make sure that we are recording. Yes, we are. So, got the correct charts up from the South African model. Now, as I said, it's been a very, very long day, and these updates are getting rather tiring. So I'm rather relieved, actually, that in a week or so's time, we are going to be at the end of this journey, and I'll be releasing winter forecast by hook or by crook, and then I'll be collapsing in a heap somewhere, most probably, certainly by Christmas Day. So we're going to have a look at the temperature anomaly for the winter. This is going from December to February. The temperature anomaly for this winter from the South African. Well, as I say, we don't use this one very often, but I thought I'd throw it in. Wish I hadn't really after that mistake. But we're coming out with a milder than average temperature being forecast by the South African model for the winter anyway. So actually it didn't make much difference. No real change there from the chart that you just saw, November to January. But it is going for a milder than average winter. Precipitation-wise, it's going for a wetter than average winter. So 3 models in, and already we do have a bit of a trend here, this final update, for milder and wetter conditions to be dominating through this winter. We go to the experimental POAMA model next, POAMA. And this is an interpretation of that model because it's restricted access model, but I do have access to, but I can't show you the charts directly. So I've done an interpretation of what the Australian Bureau of Meteorology seasonal model is showing. I do rate this one a little bit higher. It is quite a good model. Actually, the Australian model. It's a shame that they don't make it widely available. So this is the interpretation of the mean sea level pressure anomaly from the Australian model, and it's going overall for an unsettled wind. It has below average pressure, low pressure to the north. Is a little bit centred more towards the Norwegian Sea, however. So it's not a classic zonal situation. We're not centering that low pressure over Greenland and Iceland. We're centering a little bit further eastwards. Then we have above average pressure down around the Azores. So there is a ridge there through the Azores. The Azores High is there. So overall, it is a westerly Atlantic-driven winter that the model is seeing, but with some cold potential, because with the centre of this low pressure being actually more towards the Norwegian Sea and Norway, there's certainly the chance of then trenching some colder air into that low pressure at times. So I would say definitely a risk of cold snaps with this Australian model. If not a classically cold, it's not a classically cold setup by any means, but it's not the sort of very mild type setup with the air being dragged up from the tropical Atlantic that we perhaps have been used to in our milder winters over the past few years. This is a colder zonal unsettled signal, if you like. And so temperature, excuse me, temperature anomalies with the Australian model are coming out like this. Actually, it's going for average temperatures for the UK and Ireland this winter. Northeastern Europe coming out milder than average. I assume the reason we're coming out with that average temperature rather than mild average, as you might expect in an Atlantic-driven winter, is that at times we're pulling in the air from off Greenland, maybe even down from Iceland, which can be a colder direction. It is going for a very, very wet winter, though, so precipitation anomalies are coming out very significantly wetter than average through the Atlantic and into the UK and much of northern and western Europe as well. Maybe a little bit of a blocking signal there, by the way, to the south of Greenland. So a very unsettled winter being seen by the POAMA model. But with the potential for some colder snaps, some colder conditions might come through at times there with that one. James Atquill has interpreted that for us, so a big thank you to James for doing that. The Brazilian model next, and this is 500 millibar heights for the winter, going from December through to February 1718. This one always does things rather differently in that blue is extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure, yellow, orange and red, extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure. This one's seemingly going for quite a strong zonal signal this month. It is a change on last month when it did look potentially a little bit colder with its height anomaly anyway. But this time we're seeing strong ridging through the Atlantic into southern Europe with weaker, but not actually low pressure, but weaker pressure up to the north. And that presumably brings in westerly winds rather like that. So the temperature anomaly with the Brazilian model is coming out milder than average for the UK, the Atlantic and much of Europe as well. Very mild winter being signalled there. Precipitation anomalies, they're coming out, if anything, on the wet and average side, but it is close to average with those precipitation anomalies for many of us, but average to perhaps slightly wetter than average for signal from the Brazilian model. Going northwards to Canada, this is the long-range CanSIPS model from tropicaltidbits.com. You can find a link to Tropical Tidbits on the links page. This one is going for a very unsettled signal. This is mean sea level pressure. So we've got lots of low pressure up to the north. We've got high pressure. Let's just change the colour. We've got high pressure down around the Azores, and again, strong westerly signal. So quite similar in many ways between the Brazilian model and the Canadian model there for the winter. Temperature anomalies, they're coming out above average. So again, this is a strong signal from this third update. Many of the models so far have been showing warmer than average. Just the Australian model showing temperatures closer to average. Precipitation anomalies show a classic zonal signal. It's drier than average with these yellow colours to the south, and it's wetter than average with those green colours up to the north and the west. Patel Peng's analogues next. So, of course, at the start of this year, Patel took over from our friend Hugo van den Doel. Working under the umbrella of NOAA, Patel Peng is using the same methodology as Hugo van den Doel, taking a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the world in a given month. This was generated in October 2017, looking at those sea surface temperature anomalies, then creating an analogues-based forecast, looking at past years that had a similar SST anomaly. So this is what Patel Peng is going for winter 2017-18. This month we find that we've got, again, a strong signal to have the Atlantic ridge just there. So it's a little bit northerly displaced, but we have got a strong ridge to our west-southwest with below average pressure up to the north. And then we've got the jet stream going through like that. So the 200 millibar height anomaly does look really quite unsettled and Atlantic driven. Let's see what Patel is predicting for temperature anomalies. Well, given the height anomaly, you'll not be surprised to know he's going for a milder than average winter. Not just UK, but for much of Europe as well. Precipitation anomalies, again, a classic zonal signal here, drier than average to our south and southwest, wetter than average up to our north. So again, that does signal quite a strong zonal signal from Patel Peng's analogues of milder than average winter. Most definitely. This is the experimental NASA model next. This one's a little bit different from anything that we've seen so far because it has more of a ridge and it's further north. So the NASA model is placing high pressure more or less over top of the British Isles. And then we've got low pressure around Greenland, which I assume does something a bit like that with the flow and with the jet stream. We are placed on the mild side of a jet, but of course under a ridge of high pressure, it may get quite cool at times, although we don't have to emphasise this, we don't have a blocking signal at all. No real sign of normal blocking there from the experimental NASA model for this winter. Temperature anomalies are coming out milder than average. This is a very, very strong trend, this third update, as it has been, you have to say, for the previous two updates as well. The precipitation anomaly, again, it's a strong zonal signal, so it's wetter than average up here, lots of low pressure therefore around Iceland. It's drier than average down near Spain, and although the height anomaly looked like it's placing a ridge over us, to me it looks like we're just bringing in a strong zonal flow. The only difference is that the jet stream is probably a little bit further northwards compared to the other models that we've seen, but overall a mild winter being predicted there by the NASA model. And then finally for the Americas, it's NOAA's own in-house model. It's a CFS V2, the one that I know you've all been waiting for, or maybe not. This is the 700 millibar height anomaly from CFS V2. Again, it's a zonal signal. All of the American output, whether it's Brazil up to Canada, and all of the American, should be United States of American models, they're all going for a strong zonal signal. So again, we've got below average heights out to the northwest, we've got above average heights down to the south, from the Azores into southern Europe. The jet stream goes through the country like that. CFS has been very, very consistent with this throughout the whole of the autumn. So this is a temperature anomaly from the CFS V2 for this winter, and it's coming out very, very significantly warmer than average. Not surprising because the jet stream is blasting through like that. So a very mild winter, not just for the UK, but for most of Europe. I mean, we're talking about Iceland, Ireland and Portugal in the west, to Russia in the east, and deep into Russia as well, and all points in between coming out warmer than average this winter if CFS V2 is right. And the precipitation anomaly is coming out wetter than average, not just for the UK, but for much of Northern Europe. So you can clearly see what's going on there with the model. Has all of the high pressure down here, has lots of low pressure going on up here, but jet stream is going through in between, and that is doing something like that. So a very mild and wet winter for much of Northern Europe being predicted on this third and final update from CFS V2. Our next model is a new one for the updates, because we've got the ECMWF seasonal model here. There's been very exciting news over the past few weeks. The ECMWF and Meteo France long-range models are being put online for people to be able to view. You can view the both those models. You can view both of them at the Copernicus website, but you can also view the ECMWF seasonal model at the ECMWF at their own website, ecmwf.int, and that is where these charts are being viewed from. So this is the mean sea level pressure anomaly from, it's a new model, it's been upgraded, it's System 5, the name of the ECM model, season model now. This is mean sea level pressure anomaly from System 5 for December to February 2017-2018. It's going for an unsettled winter with below average pressure both to our west and to our south as well. And what this could be doing, it could be sending the jet stream on a northwest-southeast trajectory. So this, perhaps a little bit, not identical, but perhaps in some ways a little bit similar to that Australian model that I showed you earlier on, Palama, in that it's unsettled, but it could be a cooler or even colder signal at times, because it does appear that we might be on the cold side of the jet stream at times this winter, with the jet going down perhaps into southern parts of Europe. ECMWF System 5 temperature anomalies are looking like this. For much of Europe, it's coming out milder than average, but British Isles and Ireland, actually one of the cooler places in Europe, in that we're only coming out around average. But certainly in terms of much of Europe, it is seeing a milder than average winter, and precipitation is coming out above average. It's going for quite a wettish winter here in the west of Europe anyway. Notice, unlike those other models which had that strong zonal signal, and they were drier around Spain and Portugal, System 5, ECM's season model, actually looks a bit wetter through Spain. So that's a little bit interesting, because it does imply that, again, the jet stream might be going to our south at times, placing us on the cold side of the jet. So overall, it's an unsettled signal and a relatively mild signal from ECM System 5. But, and it is quite a big but, there is a caveat there in that it's a colder unsettled signal, if you like, as opposed to being a very mild unsettled signal, and it should allow at the very least some cold snaps at times for the British Isles. And then of course we've got Meteo France as well. This one can be found at the Copernicus website. So Meteo France is going for a very unsettled winter, similar in some ways to the ECMWF, but it's placing the low pressure with its mean sea level pressure anomaly over the top of the UK. Does appear to have some sort of blocking signal though around Greenland. Meteo France seasonal model is going for a milder than average winter here across much of Europe. The British Isles is included in that, though again British Isles and Ireland actually one of the cooler places, because we're closer to average compared to most parts of Europe where it's coming out warmer than average this winter. And the precipitation anomaly, that is wetter than average as well. So a very strong agreement for an unsettled winter here, above average precipitation. We're just differing a little bit on the temperature. Will it be average? That would allow some cooler snaps or colder snaps at times. Or will it be significantly milder than average? That's where we've got a little bit of differential between these model outputs. Let's go on. We'll be having a look again at the ECM and Meteo France season models over the next few months and years, I can promise you that. JAMSTEC next. This is the temperature anomaly from JAMSTEC for the winter of 2017-18. Overall, going for a milder than average winter for the British Isles, although Scotland and Northern Ireland and perhaps parts of Scandinavia, so this area just here, maybe a little bit cooler at times, but overall many parts of Europe coming out with a milder than average winter. Precipitation anomalies are looking above average as well, so this strong signal for a wet winter continues. We've got above average rainfall being predicted there. And then we go through to the Beijing Climate Center, and this one is doing something different. This is doing something different to all of the other models that we've looked at in this update. And I think this was the case when we did last month's second update as well. So what this one is doing, it has a strong blocking seal. We haven't seen this really in any of the long-range models so far. So we've got to our penultimate model. We're nearly at the end, but we do finally get a blocking signal there with some high pressure up to the north and then below average heights in terms of a 200 millibar height anomaly underneath it across the British Isles. So what that does, it means that we are pulling in at times some quite cold air from a northeasterly type direction. What does that do for the temperature anomaly? Well, look at this. We've got to our penultimate model, 13 out of 14, and finally we actually have a model here that's going for a slightly, and it is a very slight signal, but it's going for a slightly colder than average winter for the British Isles. That's our first model that we've seen that shows below average temperatures for the winter of 2017-18. It is going therefore, or however, for a wet winter above average precipitation. And again, a lot of that is to our south. So again, I think we are signalling here a southerly tracking jet stream going onto the cold side of the jet stream, if you like, with ridging being signalled around there. Beijing Climate Center is the first model that's gone for a slightly colder than average winter. And then finally, we come to our very own UK Met Office GLOSY 5 long-range model. This is mean sea level pressure for the winter of 2017-18, and it looks very unsettled. Low pressure is to our north, very deep low pressure, high pressure to the south. This is a really strong zonal signal, very similar in many ways to what the CFS V2 is doing. For the temperature anomaly, therefore, we're coming out significantly milder than average for the winter 2017-18 with GLOSY 5, and precipitation anomalies rounding it all off in what has been a very wet winter update, and that's coming out with above average precipitation. Very wet winter being signalled. And that's it. That's our third and final season model roundup for the winter 2017-18. We've got a strong, very, very strong signal here for a mild and wet winter. Certainly a very strong signal for a wet winter. In terms of temperatures, there is a little bit of uncertainty there in terms of where we have a very mild winter, as many of these models are going. CFS is going for that. GLOSY 5 is going for that. Very mild winter as well as wet winter being signalled. Or will we find ourselves going on to the cold side of the jet stream at times and perhaps having a cooler unsettled winter, some cold zonality, and maybe even some quite potent cold snaps? If the jet stream gets far enough to our south, then we could really get winds in from the north and get some quite potent cold snaps, albeit they probably won't last very long before we revert back to the Atlantic-driven wet and windy stuff. But those models that are average with the temperature anomaly, they are certainly seeing a slightly cooler type pattern in terms of the synoptics that are bringing this unsettled winter, if you like, compared to the models that are very mild and wet. So it's either average or wet, or very mild and wet. That's the signal from the third and final season model roundup. Do bear in mind, we have got the Beijing Climate Center. I rate it at the higher end of these long-range models. There is kind of like a hierarchy that you go up, and the very top of that I would place ECM, Meteo France, and GLOSY 5. They're kind of like the best. But the Beijing Climate Center is going up into the higher reaches of the better end of the scale for season models, and that one is doing something completely different. It's the only one that goes for a blocking signal, goes for slightly cold average temperatures, and with a southerly tracking jet stream bringing quite a bit of wet to weather precipitation into the south, which of course with a cold winter that might be snow. If the Beijing Climate Center is right, if we do get a cold winter, or a cold of an average temperature anomaly anyway for winter, it will be hats off to the Beijing Climate Center, because there is no other season model that is doing that. Anyway, that's the third and final season model roundup done and dusted for you. This video will be placed on the winter updates page later on today, with that extensive written report that goes with it as well. Tomorrow we've got the 12th and final winter update, and again that's going to be covering things like sea surface temperature anomalies, what's happening with ENSO, solar activity, and all of that kind of thing as well. So for the final time for that one, that'll be with you tomorrow from 10 a.m. Also tomorrow, Terry Scully will release his final winter forecast. So that's going to be really interesting. That'll be around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Terry's page tomorrow. And then it's all over, and we get to Sunday the 3rd of December, and that is the day when we put all of this together and we release the AstroWeather.com Winter 2017-18 forecast. So we're nearly at the end of the journey now, but one more winter update and Terry's winter forecast to go before we get to the finish line. Okay, thanks for watching.